Basically, Digital is a trading name for Bokamoso Consortium. It's a USAL in the District 18 in the Free State Province here in the country, South Africa. It's one of the USALs that has been, in the first phase, that has been licensed for mobile voice telephony, data internet service, value-added services, paid public phones, provision for VoIP and VAN, VPN rather, operator assistant customer, but above all to cater for business and residential consumer and be in a position to repair and maintain its infrastructure. I've been requested to speak on a topic on youth market. But however, in discussions prior, before this conference or meeting, summit, there's been some kind of a drift on this particular topic, precisely of the passion that I personally have insofar as the youth market is concerned, but not necessarily general youth in particular, but a youth somewhere lying far away in rural, where I actually come from. The immediate challenge from the perspective of the ICT industry is basically to ensure the ICT penetration in the rural area through the youth market as an entry point to realize universal service and access. This is basically deliberate. You'll get a drift as we move forward as to where our approach is coming from. But you'll also appreciate that youth on its own, energetic and all those things, as it occupies such a large market, or becomes a very easier way of an entry market into ICT. However, there's been a drift on this thing, on the topic itself. And from the audience,
with the presentation, and in the interest of time, I'd like to request the speakers to squish the presentation a bit and speed up a bit faster. Another small announcement, our speaker, Daniel Stern, needs to leave a bit earlier than expected, so if you don't mind, George, if you can swap places with Daniel Stern with yours, so he'll go next and then you after that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Back to Owen now. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We will move on faster than we have anticipated. Like I said, the topic has already been given, spoken on, but I just want to move fast on this particular issue. Now, the definition. Possibly, you can't really define, in terms of the real definition of what you will term a youth market. But we thought of this particular definition that says is basically putting a third phase. Now, the third phase here will refer to the completion of the under-service area licensees, what you call the USALs, in terms of addressing these. Because in my introduction, I said my interest has been on the youth in the far, far, far remote areas of our land. But now, putting the third phase, David, now against Goliath without a slingshot, or taking on Goliath from a feeble David to a contesting giant. Now, but what do we mean about this? Let's look at how this stage is being set. Everything is moving a little bit slower. Now, this stage has been set in different frameworks. The first framework is that there's been an invitation to apply from the Department of Communications, thereby giving anticipated and envisaged ideal world in terms of addressing this particular market or so. The rules of the game, which have got to do with regulatory and market environment, and the case at hand, which has got to deal with the stakeholder in different perspectives. Of course, the youth market itself evolve or get extinct. Let's look at the anticipated and envisaged ideal world. 2002, Department of Communication issued the ITA, that's the invitation to apply. 2008, ICASA completes the licenses, that is the Davids are now being licensed in terms of addressing this vessel, the third phase. What has been the scenario thereof? You will notice that a particular percentage in terms of addressing this particular market from that perspective, there's been around, say, 30% moving on to 70% and 100%. The phase has been done. But in between these periods, there are certain things that we have not been, dealt with that we will want to talk about in this particular summit. Now, the rules of the game. Now, what are these things? What actually happened here is that after the first phase, when the first users were licensed, they had received the first 5 million as an entry point towards addressing this particular market. They also were allocated the number range, and unfortunately there was a lack in terms of the slingshot, which one will call the spectrum. Now, what happened thereafter? Naturally, the big giants, Goliath, then came in and through an MVNO agreement, and this was the situation. The subsidy thereof was very limited. Sorry, I moved fast on that particular one. The subsidy there was very limited, but the uptake went up in terms of addressing the market. The unfortunate part is that because of the lack of, growth and all those type of things, this market or the subscriber market went down, and the crisis began. But let's look at a scenario whereby there would have been an investor situation. Now, in a situation where there is an investor situation given and also addressing the realities of this particular market, suggesting 9 million here will mean divided by 9 provinces in addressing what you call the minister's directive, which was on the Pusano, what you call the provincial under license major situation within a province setup. Now, if one perhaps user will have received a subsidy of 9 million, and you work around a question of an investment of about 500 million per 4 Davids at a time maybe, and then your subscribers, naturally, because now you have your own network. You can do anything with your own network. There's nobody else. You control your network, you control the packages, your suite of packages, and all that, what the discounts, or whatever that you can think of. And naturally, what you might have there is that there might be an upswing in terms of your market take-up, because now you have the ownership of the whole particular process. The economies of scale. Now, this is a very important aspect. You see, the dimensions of the market, particularly in our country, is quite a very interesting one, in the sense that you cannot have a situation whereby David alone will be in a position to can defeat Goliath. Neither is that David interested in defeating Goliath, as a matter of fact. Neither is David. David here being the user wanting to compete directly with Goliath, what you call the big brothers or the giants of the telecommunications. That is not the idea, but the idea is just to find a niche around that particular delivery of this particular market. Now, how do you then do that? You then have to decide to have what you call the share group system, whereby possibly you can share a knock, and then you can have your own type of the distribution access network that you will then be able to own. That in essence will minimize the cost, and the uptake naturally will be fine. But let's talk about the stakeholder. And it's about time, and then whether can we learn about these particular issues. You know, there's quite a lot about that one could have prepared on and, talk about these things. But just in summary, these are the situations and about this presentation. Now, basically what one will want to achieve here is that we will want to start a dialogue. I know there's been quite a lot of dialogues within different institutions of the stakeholder, whether ICASA, whether GOC, whether USASA in particular. But then there is an evidence-based experience in innovation and emerging policy option and implementation modalities in the context of program of support to make ICT work for the rural, possibly the rural youth. Because you can't talk about the rural youth whereby there is no connectivity. That's the starting point. But the starting point therefore is the question of how then do you have to deal with issues of policy and issues of implementation and so on. Not only to explore the third stage at hand, but also to highlight how the above described regulatory and market environment, including the financing mechanism, could be made more responsive to exploiting the emerging, that is the youth market. Further, even in focusing on access and connectivity issues, but attempts to move away from pure connectivity-orientated models to identify approaches where universal service access and connectivity form part of the deployment agenda. So that is with a focus both on how and as well as the why ICT is important for development and for the community stakeholder under consideration. Our focus is on advocacy, policy and program support to foster progress along two tracks. Now here, we will want to have a situation whereby this continued dialogue in terms of setting up a program to enhance this particular possibilities of realizing this market as an entry point or so, to strengthen and develop an empowerment dimension of ICT policy and programming, or ensuring a focus on ICT as its development method, and supporting mainstreaming integration agenda with a view to realizing full potential of development in the age of information and communication technologies. More specifically, in the context of making ICT work for the rural, we ought to focus on the following, and these are the suggestions. Policy option and models to foster pro-rural and inclusive access to ICT. Policy support to facilitate the integration of ICT into poverty elimination strategies and digital divide related strategies and development programs. Program and policy support to foster the use of ICT to strengthen local development, livelihood opportunities, and to catalyze local entrepreneurship. Support to programming to ensure that inequalities in access, capacity, and use are addressed, and that ICT is used to strengthen gender equality and social inclusion. Program and policy support to foster the use of ICT to strengthen the local development, livelihood opportunities, and also, sorry for the repetition of that one. Now, in conclusion, the youth market, like I said, there is no point where we can begin of how the youth market responds, what are the needs of the youth market, and so on, and just addressing the question of connectivity without addressing the issues of access, of universal access, of this rural youth market, of assessing the modalities and the mechanism of financing, the question of connectivity itself, because the connectivity is the last issue around the question of realizing the aspirations and the needs and the wants of the people in the rural markets. Now here, the question is a call. It's just a highlighting the plight of the disabled people, women, youth, as well as the semi-urban and the rural poor men. Now, you see, the youth in rural, the women people, in the rural. The adult man in the rural, the disabled person in the rural cannot survive alone. You know, like ants, his soul depends on the soul of an individual, of a group rather. That's basically the bottom line. You will know that there's a talk that all the riches have made their rich from the poor. But now, how do they get to do that? You have a situation where the purchasing power at a rural level cannot be on the basis of an individual, but that of a group. It is also a call from a series of knowledge products initiated by the Poverty Group Bureau of Development Policy, that is the United Nations Develop Program in New York. Thank you.
Thanks, Owen. Any questions, comments from the audience?